Welcome back to Morning at NTV, and many thanks for staying with us. I'm now joined by the CS Bank Executive Director, that is Mr. Julius Mukunda, and we are going to be talking about the financial year 2021 to 2022 National Budget Framework Paper. Yes. A very good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Yes, as we do know, as per the Public Finance Management Act of 2015, there was a presentation made on December 28th last year on the National Budget Framework Paper, that is 2021-2022. Now, we want to know from you, to what extent is it responsive to the COVID-19 demands that we are dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my brother.
Yes.
And you are telling me in confidence that at some point you had even thought COVID-19 was non-existent.
Because, I mean, I was wondering, because we used to get these daily updates.
On Twitter.
Yes, and recently I have not been getting them, like, okay, what has happened?
So
and,
what I do every morning, I make sure that I acquaint the public or our viewers with these numbers, because now there's an internet shutdown. Someone might think the disease doesn't exist anymore.
So, and the way we are behaving, you might think that probably the thing has gone, but
No.
the thing is there.
Yeah, 39,188
And,
cases. Now, according to this National Budget Framework paper, do you think it is responsive to the demands that are posed by COVID-19 and the responses needed?
And I think that is my biggest challenge right now, is that considering that COVID-19 had exposed us how our weak health system is in managing a pandemic of that magnitude, I would have expected that the health budget, for example, would have actually even doubled, get like 4 trillion, but it actually remained almost the same in terms of like around 2 trillion Ghana shillings. So for me is that we have not yet learned from what happened, the examples of the pandemic. I would have loved to see more funding go for ICU beds, for example. I would have loved to see more money going in terms of prevention mechanisms. You know, messages going out very strongly. We know that COVID, for example, is around nutrition. I'm glad that by the end of the last year, our nutrition policy action plan had been launched by the Prime Minister's office. I wanted to see funding specifically for that, because I think boosting our immunity is not only for COVID but for most of the diseases. So I wanted to see more of that. I wanted to see us recruiting more health workers. I wanted us to see motivating health workers who are working in this kind, not only for COVID, but preparing ourselves for this kind of pandemic.
So what kind of disaster are we actually looking at if we do not implement any of this? Because I was looking at people from Mulago Hospital and they were complaining. PPEs are not there. And they were saying if you see only two doctors going into the ICU, you just know it is PPE.
And it's almost now we are getting into a year with this. So if probably we had issues with the supply chain by now, if it takes us a year that we can solve that is a very big problem. So we need to boost our health financing seriously. That should not be debatable. But also we need to ensure that this mandate is there. And I think some time back I was talking about that. These issues, you see, when you account properly, it gives the appetite for somebody to give you more funding. And ever since the Ministry of Finance report came out that some funds in Ministry of under COVID were not working well, and I think we have not got a formal response from Ministry of Health that funds were being used. So not only are we supposed to fund it appropriately, but we are supposed also to get the right accountability from this particular.
Because there was a lot of money at some point, but then if doctors are still struggling with PPEs, then accountability has to be looked at.
And if this was a report from us, they could say this is the civil society organizations. But this is a government document that came up and said, look, the way you are spending money is not the right way. You need right accountability. I can tell you, a disaster is coming.
What kind of disasters? Help us understand.
Because you see, most of the funding that we got were grants and loans.
Indeed.
And the conditions attached to that loan, number one was that there will be an audit. And to any person who gives you money and carries out an audit and finds out that misappropriation, they will freeze money. And that takes us to the second point of our budget, that we are getting loans to finance our budget. So if somebody is going to give you money to finance your budget, you're in a problem. Because we know what happened when the OPM saga happened. All donors just froze their accounts and said, okay, first sort out yourself. You don't want that to happen in the middle of a crisis.
Yes.
And that's one. Number two is we've not planned for disasters properly. We know Hudud every year happens. We know we have a problem, a long-term problem with our refugee problems. We know floods. But if you have a budget that, as of today, you have not planned for contingency funding, what are you talking about? You are saying we have the other soft arm of supplementary budget all the time. But my friend, supplementary budget distorts the budget making process.
Indeed.
So these are some of the challenges that we need to fix, because COVID has taught us so many things that it's not about supplementary budgeting, it's about getting prepared.
But it's like we've learned nothing from this part.
As of now, I can tell you, I'm not seeing a lesson we have learned. Even when we have shifted from a sector-wide approach to program-based approach, we expected that sectors now are going to say, here is one thing we are going to deliver on. But still you find KCCA wants to develop industrial parks. It's a brilliant idea. Uganda Investment Authority wants to develop industrial parks. Uganda Zonal Authority also wants to develop industrial parks. And now you begin to wonder, are we serving the same government and the same people? Or these sectors belong to different governments? So I think the incoming government now is the right time to rationalize, for example, and say, okay, guys, very nice to do industrial parks, but let's take all the industrial parks and give them to Uganda Zonal Authority, because they're the ones mandated to do that. Or we leave them out completely and then the department handles that one. So this kind of duplication also is among the key major challenges.
Do you think there is hope from the 11th Parliament? We are talking about a Parliament that has burgeoned all the way to 514 MPs. You need an excess of 50 billion to feed all those MPs, Mr. Mukunda.
And I'm optimistic for that. You know what comes out of that one also? Is that this Parliament, I'm told that it has been a hemorrhage, that the old chaps, an entire 64% of them left. So we have a new breed. That's an opportunity. A new breed, hungry for information, hungry to deliver, hungry for reforms. So I think
a new breed that might be green about policy or legislation.
Very good, and therefore we are going to let them know what the new policy is supposed to be, what hard decisions and questions are supposed to take. And these hard decisions, they can only be taken by these new members of Parliament. The old ones, we can say, they still had vested interests. So you say the new MPs, come on, guys. This is the situation on the ground. Let's deal with this. Our debt is ballooning.
The debt is ballooning, Mr. Mukunda.
The debt is
Let's talk about the sustainability of the public debt stock. It has ballooned since June of 2020, all the way to 56.8 trillion Uganda shillings. Mr. Mukunda, is our debt sustainable?
Now, for me, is to give you the information and then you begin to wonder, is that if we say that our debt has not reached the ceiling of 50% GDP, then we are saying fine, we are fine, okay. But US and Japan and these other big countries, for them they are above 100. Should we get worried that they are 100, they are not likely to pay? So you find that the indicator we use to set a benchmark that we are okay is very misleading and is very soft target. The right indicator is the amount of money you have in your pocket that to be able to pay.
But not looking at your neighbor.
Don't
who has 300 million.
Don't look at the things you have. It is how much the cash flow you have that is going to help you service the debt. And one thing we are having is that we are now above the 20% threshold of the revenue to debt ratio. That's a problem. That means that most of our money is being put to, most of the money is being put to service debt. And interest rate payments themselves. Now, that's what to tell you that you have a 4 trillion to pay interest rate payment, which means that if we didn't have a very huge debt, maybe the interest rate would have been lower, and then we have enough resources to finance these things we are talking about. So for me, that is my problem with debt. I'm beginning to get scared. Debt refinancing itself is also increasing. And debt refinancing, in simple terms, is I have not paid today. I was supposed to pay you today, but I am negotiating to pay you tomorrow. It's good in business. But if I keep on negotiating every day that now it is tomorrow, but let me pay Tuesday. Tuesday comes, but let me also pay Wednesday.
Remember, as you promise, I'm also planning for the money.
Yes, but that I begin to get worried. Are you likely to pay me? So when you say debt financing increasing, then you are likely to ask yourself, what is happening? So I think one of the things that the new parliament and the new government is going to do, we need to cut appetite to spend on each and everything. We need all this infrastructure, but we can sequence the infrastructure development in this country. When we have finished the Busega, when we have finished the Northern Express Highway, let us also be able to start the Jinja Kampala Express Highway. Let us also, after that, be able to look at the SGR that we have been talking about. But if you want to start everything at the same time, then we get into the problem of servicing our own debt. And I think the new parliament needs to do that. On debt, last year is our public investment management.
Yes.
Yes, borrowing wouldn't be bad. But if you borrow and you get returns on your on that investment, I think that would be a very good area. But currently we are being told that for every dollar we invest, we get 0.7 cents of the dollar. The global average is $7. Why? Because when we are planning Entebbe Express Highway, we did not think that we needed the right of way. So it delays for more than 20 years. When we were planning that we want to develop Siba Dam, we forgot that we needed to evacuate that electricity and bring it to the consumer. And as we started to bring the transmission lines, then there is the right of way. Somebody says, no, you need to pay me $1 billion before you can pass here. We know we have issues with the land. Why don't we change the land laws to accommodate the government to be able to expressly acquire land and deliver these projects on time? So most of the projects are delaying, and as a matter of fact is that we need to sit down and renegotiate these loans, because if you have a project for the last 5 years, you're only paying commitment fees and interest payment on the loan you have not even received, definitely you need to sit down and restructure.
Projects aside, Mr. Mukunda, is there a way we can have a conversation on reducing money spent on Parliament? 150 million to buy a single car. It is a one-off, but it is too much money.
Let me tell you.
With all the challenges in this country.
With all the challenges in this country, you have this huge this huge parliament. You have all these cities that are coming up. You have all these councillors and town councils. You have all these agencies and authorities that are there. That's why our consumption is above 50%, around 54%. Consumption expenditure on maintaining these ones only. No wonder we are not getting returns to investment.
I see.
Less money is being put on the development budget. So a decision must be made. And let me tell you when they come. First thing is increase their salaries.
Of course.
And I don't know what
they seem to always agree on that
we needed some divine intervention. They would increase their salaries. They want to brand new cars immediately. After that, then they will start asking for extra allowances. And the Parliament has been one of the biggest spenders. And they usually compare themselves with the executive. But also, there is one danger I have realized on our budget.
Go ahead.
The judiciary recently had a new act of Parliament where they decided that they are self-accounting. As such, if they develop their budget, nobody touches it. Indeed. Not even Parliament, not even Minister of Finance could say, please, you have increased here, you should reduce. No. The law is very clear. Self-accounting. Nobody decides on how they spend their money. I am glad that we still have a very reasonable judiciary. Indeed. If you one time get a madman into that space, he will double or triple the budget they want. You will not do anything. Indeed. Now, that's one. Two is Parliament is going to follow suit. Oh, you are self-accounting. We intend also to do the same, self-accounting. Don't even touch that budget. So that kind of behavior, I think, is very dangerous. We need a mechanism of ensuring that, yes, you can be self-accounting, you are an independent body, but how do we ensure that we spend on you equitably, depending on the available sources?
Mr. Julius Mukunda is the Executive Director for Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. You're talking about the financial year 2021-2022 National Budget Framework Paper. Well, Mr. Mukunda, we also do know that the country was able to stay afloat during the COVID-19 pandemic, largely because of agriculture. It was uninterrupted. But then, however, we are getting information that the industrialization program, yes, it's projected to receive only 3.3% of the total national budget, Mr. Mukunda. Why are we not investing in agriculture that much?
Did we learn anything from COVID? So
This is
that's my problem. That we knew of all sectors and service sector also sort of would grow, but we know why. Everybody was using Zoom. That agriculture was the only sector that survived. Whether it has rained or not, the farmers were out there growing their food. Whether they are making profits or not, but they were there feeding the nation. Why then is it that when we are doing this budget, we have not specifically said that let us invest more than ever before in the agricultural sector? They give it 1.5 trillion. This sector required approximately not less than 4 trillion. Don't even think about percentages.
We're
of
talking
national
about a
budget.
sector that has 11 million vacancies.
68% of the entire population is dependent on this sector. It is our magic bullet to kick poverty in this country completely out. Why don't we tell farmers, and I have said, if you assure farmers in this country that you can evacuate their products, the farmer will not even require your extension service, they will not require your herbicides and pesticides, they will not require anything from, they will go ahead and look for them themselves, knowing there is already a market for it. We just can't do that.
So help us, enlighten us, Mr. Mukunda. Where could the problem be?
The problem, we lack leadership in the agricultural sector.
Leadership.
We lack leadership in the agricultural sector to tell whoever is making a decision that this is the right thing to do. How can we fail to sell eggs to Kenya? How can we fail to sell milk to Kenya when most of their products are coming in this country? What is the problem with our ambassadors in the northern Africa and Western Africa? What is their job? Their first issue to do for me is that they should find markets for our country.
Should find markets for our country.
Yes.
Julius Mukunda, the Executive Director for Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. It's always enlightening to have these conversations with you. Looking forward to our next encounter.
Thank you so much.
All right. And you're still watching Morning at NTV. A break is in order.